Further to my left, we have Takashi Mitachi, the Japan Managing Director for the Boston Consulting Group. We then have Ken Okuyama, President of Ken Okuyama Design, a renowned automotive designer and industrial designer. To my far left, we have Hiroaki Kitano, President of Sony Computer Science Labs. Thank you all very much for joining us today. First of all, Minister Inada will deliver a short speech talking about, I think, regulatory reform, Cool Japan, and so on, which we're very much looking forward to. Please, take the podium.
And thank you very much, Ms. Booth, for your introduction. Within the current administration, I am in charge of the three major structural reform initiatives, namely regulatory reform, administrative reform, and civil service reform. I also supervise the Cool Japan initiative that aims at conveying the appeal and attractiveness of Japanese culture, and the Challenge Again initiative that attempts to change the culture. But the fact that Mr. Abe was given the chance to challenge again 2 years ago, might be seen as evidence of the Japanese society changing, albeit slowly. Having said that, in Japan, failure in business is still stigmatized. My credo as a politician is tradition and creation. We need to preserve a tradition and construct an economy and society in which motivated people can take on challenges without being afraid of failures. It may sound paradoxical, but I am starting to think the key lies in showing the true colors of Japan, or Cool Japan. One Japanese Silicon Valley entrepreneur told me that he received hundreds of millions in capital from an investor who said, "You are Japanese. I am willing to invest if the founder is Japanese." That, to me, shows the power of Cool Japan, the trust in Japanese goods and people. When the second Abe administration was inaugurated, I was appointed the first minister for Cool Japan strategy. And so I decided to make it my first task to redefine the Cool Japan strategy with the cooperation of the 7 samurais, 7 eminent Japanese people representing different aspects of Japanese culture, including Yasushi Akimoto, producer of the AKB Idol Group, Junko Koshino, world-renowned fashion designer, and Soichitsu Sen, grandmaster of the Urasenke way of tea. Cool Japan should not be something special. We position the Cool Japan strategy as a national social movement. There are 3 important points in the second phase. First, design. Second, local areas. And third, foreigners. In other words, Cool Japan and the artistic detail of Japan will be the focus, and not things that we think is good, but things that non-Japanese people think is good will be the focus in the second phase of Cool Japan. We have to add new things, create new things in addition to the tradition that we have to improve the brand power and image of Japan. We need to increase fans of Japan and attract eyes onto Japan. And we hope we will be able to show the new Japan to the world. And I would like to take the lead in that endeavor. I look forward to further developments. Thank you for your attention.
I'd like to ask Okuyama-san, himself a fairly perfect example of Cool Japan, just to talk a little about how European countries have used these kinds of techniques, and perhaps Japan has lagged behind.
The answer to your question actually is brand and the products based on the national identity. Not just based on their corporate identity, because, for example, England and Italy and France, what is the product differentiation? Culture, national culture is a very strong tool to differentiate the brands. Japan, up to now, we never really have to think about the national identity, national cultural differentiation, because luckily we didn't really have anybody that were able to compete against our products and the services.
Kitano-san, can I ask you whether you're optimistic about the strategy of Cool Japan for the future?
Well, I think this is very interesting that the government decided to focus on Cool Japan, including not just technology, which we traditionally did, but also expanding the culture. One of the things I experienced is like I'm one of those technology geeks. I go to Akihabara, I go to electric stores, and when I was a kid, or like even a college student. Then one day, like 5 years ago, I went to Akihabara, and then all the component shops is gone. I mean, it's still there, but like most of them are gone. When I was surprised, I said, "Oh my God, this is the end of Japanese industry because it's the whole thing. We buy the Japanese electronic, industry. It's pretty much gone." But I look at those animes on the figures. So like I saw this is like a down on Japanese economy. But like I look at the who's actually buying is from around the world, from Asia, from Russia, from France. So the new subculture, whatever we call, actually attracting the global audience. So like, then I traveled to the Bangkok last year, and then I had Hello Kitty-chan everywhere in the McDonald's. Surprising, right? Now Akihabara turned into the kind of innovation center for a showcase of like a new kind of Cool Japan, new kind of Japanese strengths. So I think it's combining. I think it's to show the transition that we are making. As Prime Minister Abe noticed, when Japan have to change, we change dramatically. I think we're now undergoing a dramatic change to the only technology oriented. It's not the only, but like a technology push to technology and culture and Cool Japan. I think that's the whole Cool Japan means. It's a quality, culture, and innovation, which is a traditional image of Japan, and we probably want to maintain that as well.
Thank you. A question for Minister Inada. Where do you see the biggest markets? Is it America, Europe? Is it Asia, the region? Where is the biggest potential for Cool Japan products of various kinds?
All over the place, I think. I don't think we have to decide one single market. It could be the United States, it could be Europe, it may be Asia. So I think there is still the potential to sell in Cool Japan, Japanese goods, Japanese ideas and images. So I think compared to the various goods that we have, I think we haven't been trying to appeal ourselves to the outside world. Mr. Kitano mentioned that this time it is the government that have latched on to this idea of Cool Japan. And up until now, we had factionalism in the bureaucracy, whether we're talking about the MAF or METI or MLIT or whichever. They had done their own thing. But for the first time with Cool Japan's strategy, the bureaucrats or the bureaucracies have mustered their forces together under this one slogan of Cool Japan. I think that's an innovation in itself. So, and I do hope that the Cool Japan strategy will develop further.
Okuyama-san, is it getting easier to be a small company, to be an entrepreneur?
Well, having worked outside for 25 years of Japan, looking at Japan from outside, actually Japanese corporations were the most difficult companies to work with or work for. Because not sharing the information enough, and there is no instant decision making in front of you, and a lot of issues that when I was doing the design consultation in Italy, we actually, I must say in public, that they try to avoid working with many Japanese corporations, because without sharing the information, there's no way you can really get to what customers really want.
The problem seems to be really about big companies, that they don't want to work with small ones. They have a very sort of traditional, many have a very traditional promotion system, so that if you leave to try and start up a venture and it fails, you can't get back in. I also hear that large companies sit on science and technology discoveries and sort of just own them and don't let small companies develop them. So it seems to be a problem with big companies. Is there anything that the government can do to tackle this problem?
Listening to the discussion, in the Abe administration, we are very much for entrepreneurship. Young people, women, And small companies starting up regardless of large companies supporting them. The government is willing to support them. Business contests are being done, and we have a support system for entrepreneurs. But what is lacking then? You just talked about the issue of large companies, but there is also the issue of the mindset of the people. As was mentioned by a person in the Silicon Valley, in Japan, we tend to be afraid of failures. But in Japan, failure is not considered to be of value. And the young people in Japan are very much inward looking. They want a stable lifestyle working for a large company, and that is what they define as success. And that is probably the barrier. And if that is solved, I think the menu that the government is already supplying will contribute.
It's been changing, like in the US in the 1990s. The top-notch university graduates now going to startups and early, let's say, ventures. For example, we, as a consultant, are losing a lot of talented ones against those smallish companies. They are not going to Ministry of Finance anymore. They are not going to Mitsubishi Corporation. They are not coming to Goldman Sachs nor to BCG. They are going there. But the only missing piece is, as laid out by Minister, is that when some of them are going to fail miserably, can we really help them to rebuild their courage and try that again or not? It's going to be on us. So the movements are there.
Kitano-san, two questions for you. First, I think you have, you think there's a problem with the translation of advanced technology into new businesses, that there's plenty of technology, but it doesn't get commercialized. I would love to hear a bit more about that.
Well, I think one is how technology, engineers tend to be having high technology itself has a value, which is not true. When in a business, you have to provide a value. And to provide value in a global market, you have to have a very diverse view. One of the things I actually worry about is how we can attract global talent to the startup. For example, currently, anyone can create Japanese company, but because of the visa restrictions, the company have to have over 5 million yen by capital in a startup, or have to hire full-time two Japanese employees full-time. There are some sort of expert point, like a Kodo Jinzai point system, but they have to have a PhD and then a graduate. So then Steve Jobs, Bill Gates never qualified. So for those actually guys to come up, like a student entrepreneur from outside, non-Japanese coming to Japan to be successful, taking advantage of Japanese market or Japanese technology, it's not going to happen in the current system. So I think it's important for Japan to actually create a system that embraces global talent coming to Japan and be successful. And that's exactly what's going on in Silicon Valley.
There's just such a huge potential for reviving animal spirits, reviving entrepreneurship, and it would seem to me a very clear roadmap for how to get there. I'd like to thank Minister Inada. Thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you.